Hello everyone, welcome to another online session from Next Gen Doctors Academy. I am Raji here, your botany lecturer. So we'll be continuing with the discussion on aerobic respiration. So we have discussed what are the steps that can be commonly followed in both aerobic as well as anaerobic respiration, that is glycolysis, right? We also had seen how the anaerobic respiration or fermentation occurs or the process of anaerobic respiration follows, right? So now we'll continue with aerobic respiration part. So after glycolysis, right? So when we talk about aerobic respiration, we know that aerobic respiration refers to complete breakdown of food with the release of energy, right? So when we say complete breakdown of food, the food that we are referring here is glucose. So glucose will be completely broken down into carbon dioxide, water, and a lot of energy will be released as a part of this process. So now in glycolysis, what we have seen, the food is not being completely broken down, because we know that glycolysis is a partial breakdown product. Why we are calling it as a partial breakdown product? Because glucose is not completely broken down into their respective carbon dioxide molecule. It is only being converted into two molecules of pyruvic acid. That means yet there are some bond energy that is present in pyruvic acid that can be harvested or extracted to obtain more amount of energy, right? So when we are talking about aerobic respiration, these bonds which are present in pyruvic acid has to be broken down. So by the end of aerobic respiration, this pyruvic acid will be completely degraded or completely broken down into carbon dioxide and water. So now in order to undergo this process, it's a step-by-step process. So the next step in aerobic respiration after the glycolysis has been completed is what we call as link reaction, right? So remember, these all process that we are discussing here, it is a part of aerobically respiring organisms metabolic process, right? So all these reactions that we are talking here about doesn't occur in anaerobic respiration. So in anaerobic respiration, after glycolysis, right, pyruvic acid, the fate of pyruvic acid will be directly to undergo the fermentation process, or what you call as anaerobic respiration, right? But the fate of pyruvic acid in aerobically respiring organism, right, will undergo different process or different steps so that it can be completely oxidized. So as a result, right, so a lot of energy can be harvested. So that is the reason after glycolysis, the next step that the cell will follow here is link reaction. So if you remember, if you recall, I have told you glycolysis, whether it is a prokaryote or eukaryote, it occurs in cytoplasm of the cell. So cytoplasm is the place where glycolysis, that is the initial reaction of respiration, happens, right? So once the pyruvic acid is formed, the pyruvic acid needs to be transported, right? So when I say transported, so this phenomena occurs in eukaryote, because eukaryotic cell, the link reaction and the subsequent process, that is Krebs cycle, electron transport system and all, it occurs inside mitochondria. That is the reason we say mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, because it is where the energy is being generated. So which energy are we talking here about? ATP, right? So which cell is responsible for aerobic respiration in eukaryotic organism? Mitochondria. So except glycolysis, the subsequent reaction of aerobic respiration occurs in mitochondria. So this is true for eukaryotic cell, right? But what about prokaryotic cell? So prokaryotic cell can be aerobic or anaerobic. So if a prokaryote is aerobe, right, we know that they don't have mitochondria. So how do they undergo the subsequent reaction of aerobic respiration? So these reaction occurs in cytoplasm as well as on the plasma membrane, because they have the all the activities like electron transport system and all, they are a part of their mesosome, and mesosome is a part of plasma membrane, right? So plasma membrane is the arena of activity there, or cytoplasm in case of prokaryotic organism when we are dealing with aerobic respiration. In case of eukaryotic organism, except the initial glycolysis, rest everything occurs in mitochondria. So if I take an example of a eukaryotic cell, right? So if we are talking about an animal cell here, for example, right? So in initial process in the animal cell, it occurred in cytoplasm, right? So what happens, or what occurred in cytoplasm? So what happened in cytoplasm was, cytoplasm, we say that cytoplasm is also known as arena of metabolic activities. Always remember this term, right? So a lot of activities occurs in cytoplasm. So my cytoplasm, all the arena means a place where maximum activities, when I say activities, we are, we are concerned, or we are particularly referring to metabolic reaction, because what are the different types of activity present in the cell? Most of the activity is in the form of metabolic reactions. So which part of the cell is the place where a lot of metabolic reactions will be taking place? So that is cytoplasm. So here also, when we talk about a eukaryotic cell, right? So suppose this is a eukaryotic cell, right? So in this eukaryotic cell, right, the initial process, right? So what is the initial process here? I am referring to glycolysis or EMP pathway, right? So the initial EMP pathway or glycolysis, right? So the initial EMP pathway or glycolysis, it occurred in the cytoplasm, right? So once the EMP pathway is completed, as a result of EMP pathway, what has been produced? Pyruvic acid, right? Or you can also call it as pyruvate. It is just acid and base, right? So pyruvic acid was the byproduct, right? Now this is a partial oxidation product. Now this pyruvic acid has to be moved into mitochondria, right? So eukaryotic cell, as we have just now discussed, the powerhouse of the cell where all the rest of the aerobic respiration reaction is happening is your mitochondria. So in order to further substantiate or further continue with the aerobic respiration reaction, the product of glycolysis should be transported to mitochondria, right? So the pyruvic acid next is getting transported to mitochondria, so that the further reaction of aerobic respiration can be carried out, right? So what are the further reactions of aerobic respiration? Your link reaction, Krebs cycle. So by the end of Krebs cycle, your glucose will be completely oxidized into carbon dioxide and water, and a lot of energy will be harvested. Now this energy will be trapped and converted into ATP by what you call as electron transport system. Again, electron transport system also will happen in the mitochondria, right? So here, what we will see here, we will see after this pyruvic acid is getting transported to mitochondria, what is the next thing that happens here, right? So that means, what is the second step of aerobic respiration? So as I was telling you, the second step of aerobic respiration is link reaction. So this is the second step of aerobic respiration. So now let me see what happens in link reaction. So when we talk about link reaction, right, link reaction is also called as oxidative decarboxylation. You should definitely remember this, oxidative decarboxylation of pyruvic acid, right? So what is happening in the link reaction? In link reaction, so chemically, what is link reaction? Link reaction is also known as oxidative decarboxylation. So oxidative decarboxylation of what? Oxidative decarboxylation of the substrate that is entering into the link reaction. So what is the link reaction substrate? Remember, pyruvic acid. So what are the different types or ways of question formation here? Pyruvic acid is said to be the substrate entering into link reaction, right? So this is the substrate that is entering into the link reaction. Right? Now pyruvic acid will be, right? So pyruvic acid also is a form of glucose, right, which is entering into mitochondria. right? So what is the form of glucose that is entering into mitochondria? That is right. So form of glucose that is entering into mitochondria is pyruvic acid, right? So as you can see here, so form of glucose that is entering into mitochondria, right? So this is something which is important. So these are the ways of asking question. They can also say what is the substrate or what is the form of glucose that is entering into link reaction or mitochondria for that matter, that is pyruvic acid, or what is the substrate that is entering into the process of link reaction, that is pyruvic acid, right? Now what is pyruvic acid undergoing after entering into the mitochondria? It will undergoes two process, that is oxidative decarboxylation. So oxidation and decarboxylation. So these are the two process that will be undergoing by your this pyruvic acid, which will be entering into the mitochondria, right? So now remember, when we talk about link reaction, right, what is the site of link reaction? It is mitochondrial matrix, right? So in case of eukaryote, the site of link reaction will be mitochondrial matrix, right? In case of prokaryote, the site for prokaryote, right, it will be cytoplasm, right? So what will be the site of link reaction for prokaryote? That is cytoplasm, right? So now let us see what is the type of reaction that is happening in link reaction. What exactly will be happening in link reaction, right? So now here pyruvic acid, right? So we know that how many carbon atom it is pyruvic acid? 3 carbon atom, and we know that how many molecule of pyruvic acid has been produced as a result of glycolysis? 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. So pyruvic acid will be undergoing oxidation and decarboxylation. So two things will be happening here, oxidation and decarboxylation, right? So when we talk about oxidation and decarboxylation here, right? So for oxidation, what is the oxidizing agent? NAD plus is the oxidizing agent, right? And what is released as a process here? Right? So NAD plus will be the oxidizing agent, and what will be the release as a process here? NADH plus H, right? So here pyruvic acid will undergo oxidation, right? At the same time, it will also undergo decarboxylation. Decarboxylation means what? Removal of carbon dioxide. Remember, two processes happening here, right? What are the two processes happening here? One is oxidation. The second process here is decarboxylation, right? So pyruvic acid is undergoing oxidation and decarboxylation. So as a result of oxidation and decarboxylation, what is being formed here? We will see, right? So what is the product here? It will form acetyl coenzyme A, right? So in link reaction, pyruvic acid will undergo oxidation and decarboxylation to form acetyl coenzyme A, right? So this is pyruvic acid, acetyl coenzyme A. How many carbon it is? 2 carbon compound, right? So pyruvic is having 3 carbon, right, which will undergo decarboxylation, that is removal of carbon dioxide. So when you remove 1 carbon from pyruvic acid, the leftover how many carbon will be there? 2 carbon. So the product that is formed as a result of pyruvic acid oxidation and decarboxylation is what you call as acetyl coenzyme A, right? So this is what you call as link reaction. So this acetyl group, what you see here, is made up of how many carbon? 2 carbon. You can see here, this coenzyme A is a new group. So coenzyme A should be added in the process, right? So it is being taken in the reaction, right? So this entire process is catalyzed by a very, very important enzyme, right? So the enzyme that is participating in the process here is known as pyruvate dehydrogenase complex, right? So what is the enzyme that is participating here? It is known as pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. Remember, this pyruvate dehydrogenase complex, it is a multi-enzyme system, right? When I say it is a multi-enzyme system, it is not made up of one particular enzyme. It is a combination of different enzymes and different cofactors, right? Like for example, this pyruvate dehydrogenase complex contains 5 cofactors. See, this is not given in the textbook as such, but the question can be asked because in the reaction you already have 2 cofactors mentioned there, right? So what are the other 3 cofactors that will be participating in the process? That we should keep it in mind, right? So how many cofactors? Usually one enzyme usually have only one cofactor unless and until it is huge enzyme. So huge enzymes require multiple subunits and multiple cofactors. So one of such example is your pyruvate dehydrogenase complex, which will be catalyzing your link reaction. So this enzyme is having how many cofactors? 5 cofactors. So what are the 5 cofactors? We will see here. One is NAD plus, as you can see there. NAD plus is another cofactor. When I say cofactor, what kind of cofactor is NAD plus? It is a coenzyme that will be participating in this reaction. So NAD plus is one cofactor. Another cofactor here is coenzyme A. So coenzyme A is another cofactor. Then third cofactor is lipoic acid. This is another cofactor, the third cofactor. The fourth cofactor here is thiamine, not thymine, thiamine pyrophosphate, right? So the next cofactor here is thiamine pyrophosphate. So now this thiamine is not THYMINE. So THYMINE is your nucleotide, nitrogen base, right? So this is a vitamin. So thiamine pyrophosphate. So this is also a coenzyme. This is also a coenzyme. That means it's a cofactor. And finally, what you have is magnesium, Mg2 plus, right? So these are the 5 cofactors that will be participating in which process? It will be participating in link reaction, right? So it will be participating in link reaction as a cofactor, right? For which enzyme? Pyruvate dehydrogenase complex, right? So it will be participating as a cofactor for the enzyme pyruvate dehydrogenase complex, right? So what we discussed now? We discussed in aerobic respiration, right? what is the next step that is happening? There are organisms that will be undergoing aerobic respiration. What they will do once the glycolysis is completed, because their sugar has to be completely broken down. So once the glycolysis will be completed, they will undergo the very next process of aerobic respiration, that is the link reaction. So by the end of link reaction, again, keep it in mind, link reaction also is not complete oxidation of pyruvic acid. Why I am using the word oxidation? Because link reaction is oxidative decarboxylation. So you have got oxidation as well as decarboxylation. Always remember, in biological systems, right, always oxygen is not directly involved in every case in the process of oxidation. So there are certain oxidation and oxidative and reducing agents there that also will help in the process of redox reaction. So one such example here that we have is NAD+. So NAD+ actually is a coenzyme that also will act as an oxidizing agent. So in this process, NAD+ is getting reduced, but pyruvic acid is getting oxidized to acetyl coenzyme A. So that is what happens. So this happens in every aerobically respiring organism, whether they have mitochondria or whether they don't have mitochondria. In the organism which have mitochondria, this process happens inside the mitochondria, and in the cases where mitochondria is absent, this process will happen in the cytoplasm, right? So that means what is the ultimate product that is made from glucose after link reaction? It is your acetyl coenzyme A, right? So I believe everyone understood till here. So this is all about our first step, next step after the process of glycolysis. So keep it in mind, yet your glucose has to be oxidized into its respective carbon dioxide and water molecule, right? So this is one of the important parameters, or one of the important steps that we need to study, right? So that's all for today. Thanks everyone. So in the next class, we'll be discussing about the last and the final step in the oxidation of glucose, that is our Krebs cycle, which is one of the major respiratory pathway, right, wherein your glucose will be completely oxidized to carbon dioxide and water molecule.